Why your first offer may be the best. Stay tuned for this episode. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Bergio, Billy Drury, episode 1706. Why your best offer may come first. Not the best of topics, Billy, but I think it's an important one. It's one where owners and agents can learn from other stories, other scenarios that have happened, and can adjust and hopefully minimize any of the damage, you could call it, with their property. Maximize your sale price, because I think in this market you sort of need to look at where the sentiment is in the property market, look where the trends are, and unfortunately the trends have not been pricing increasing, and they have been going backwards. So, Billy, what do buyers need to assess with the marketplace first to identify that trend? Like, what are some key identifiers out there to pick which market you're in?
Well, just before we get into that quickly, I just want to say there's sort of two things we're going to cover off this morning. One is the behavioral traits of buyers, and then the second is the market dynamics and the way those two work together. Now, there's a couple of reasons. I think let's take the scientific basis. Let's remove feelings, because the facts don't care about feelings. You may feel that waiting longer on the market is going to get you more money, but the facts are that there's sort of a scientific basis as to why properties get the best offers in their early days, and you can either look at that from the buyer behavioral side, and that is that the most motivated buyers are the ones that are ready to move first. They're generally a high commitment, they're high confidence, they may have fear of missing out, they may have already made a decision, before they've even made the intention to inspect, that they're gonna move quickly if they like it. Second of all, the longer a buyer's search goes on, the more that costs them through downloading building and pest reports and getting contracts reviewed with solicitors. So that creates some urgency there. And obviously then once they've started to see property sell, it's like that revolving door. They've been through a property that was for sale, now it's sold. Then they go into a space where they're trying to create loss evasion. So that's the buyer side, Verge.
Yes, and then when it comes to the property as well, like you said, with more time on the market, when the trends aren't working in your favor, you're now competing not with, like, when an agent's comparing what they believe your property is worth, what the surrounding properties sell for are a big indicator of that price. And now we all love to think that when everyone's selling, there's no more urgency than other parties, but it's just not the case. Some people buy and they have to be sold, otherwise they lose the other property. So they can be a lot more negotiable. Sometimes there's been a death in the family, they just want to get rid of it. And then sometimes people are living in there, they haven't bought anything, and they're in no rush. They're waiting for that price. Now, on top of that buyer side that you mentioned, what can really hurt you being on the market longer is comparable sales. Like, let's look at one in DY where we sort of stemmed this conversation. It was on the market originally at 1.5. We had sold the next door property at 1.5. It was worth 1.5.
In that market.
Fast forward 3 months, it hadn't sold, and it just traded for 1.26. Now, we still have a lot of properties for sale in that building around that area. So now with that comparable sale, our first messages are to the other owners on the marketplace going, this really hurts us, to put it simply. Like, before, we were just waiting for the right buyer to come along. No one else had sold at where we sort of felt like the market had been. Like, if you had asked us through the sentiment, we were like, well, we think this may be from 1.5 down to 1.4, 1.35. But there'd been no sales to back that up, and you're not an owner's not potentially drastically adjusting their pricing based on that. But now there's been that sale locked in at 126, $250,000 less. So now what happens to the owners who are even more in need of selling faster? Do they look at 1.2? Is 115 the next sort of big price that we see there as well? So in a market where the trends are not going upwards, it can be very dangerous waiting for that buyer. Because, yeah, even if you find that perfect buyer who loves your property and they'll pay anything for it, you've still got the emotional side, and then you've still got the non-emotional side, the analytical side, the numbers-based side. And if they're seeing properties like yours selling for 125, just because you want 1.5, they're not going to pay it. So it didn't matter you waited 3 months for that perfect buyer, because the marketplace had shifted from under your feet. So I think that's a big part, as what you said as well. But
there's a statistic, like if you look at the analytics that we get the insight to as an agent behind the scenes of someone's campaign, the analytics are, and it makes sense, that the biggest spike in views is when you first launch the property. The most amount of inquiry is generally in that first week or two. The highest number of inspections is in that first week or two. It would make sense to receive offers, and sometimes the best offers, in those first weeks. At least if you're getting a plethora of offers at a similar level, again, it might not be at your desired price, but at least it's establishing where the market sees value.
And I think this market is more important than ever. It's not really the market to be testing the market. It's you want to sell or you don't. And if you want to sell, then you need to really look at also your history. Like if you bought this 5, 10, 20 years ago, you're still making a boatload of money. Yes, you could have made more if you sold 6, 12 months ago, but to sell, you've made the decision to sell, and that's because the family's gotten bigger, family's gotten smaller, you've moved, work, you need to sell. There's a lot of listings at the moment I've turned away and said to the owners, it's not the market to test it. And if the market says it's worth $1 million, we might get offers at 1.2. It's just not that market for 99% of the properties. So I don't want you going through the stress, the emotion, the money to sell when you're looking for that above market price. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. Like, yes, selling for $250,000 less than what you expected is pretty doom and gloom. But if you're upsizing to a property that was originally $4 million and now you're buying that for $3 million, you're still far better off. And you need to be looking at that bigger picture. Now, if it's the other way around, you're selling to downsize, then you may go, well, should we wait 3 years? Should we wait 5 years? And if the answer is no, then it tends to really make that decision before you go to market, because everything you said about the buyer side of it, we've always known the best buyers come in week one, and the most educated, the most willing to act, basically, you could say, I don't want to say damage, all the buyers who have gone through the trenches of missing out on properties, they're looking at your property wanting to snap it up as fast as they can, because they may have missed out on just 3 properties. Now, as much as we saw that in a booming market, meaning buyers missing out because the pricing kept going higher, it's quite interesting how it's a little bit of the same. They're missing out, but it's actually getting better for them as they miss out. So often in the last couple of weeks, I've heard a buyer say, I'm actually glad I missed out on that one. The next door came up a little bit cheaper, or this came up that was better. So that's what you're facing with is there. Just
see, like to the micro markets in Sydney, we do have those particular properties in the luxury space or the acreage space where there's not going to be potentially that reality of the next door neighbor coming up in a unit block where it's the same floor plan and it's a different price. So there are exceptions to this, don't get me wrong, and days on market change for suburbs. But yeah, we're talking, as the example today, about the $240,000 change in price on a 2-bedroom apartment. It's a bit different, particularly when it's a new building and there's multiple for sale at one time. And I think, to your point, Michael, if you are a vendor and you are considering a price adjustment, that's the recommendation of your owner and of the agent, and as an owner that still works for you, because you're going to be a buyer again and you'll pick the same discount up, or because you're going to move and the property you've moved to is better suited to your needs. Like, there's only so much you can control in a market. So if you have taken a change in price from what it would have been at the peak, like, there are silver linings to it. You've either set yourself up as a good buyer into your next property and you'll get the same discount because it's the same market, or you basically move from one property to another. It's better suited to your needs, and it allows you to progress in other aspects.
100%. And I think a message we can give owners as well: don't be too strict on the price guide. The irony is, a lot of time in real estate, the lower the guide, sometimes the higher the price you can achieve. Real estate is based around competition, and we've all heard the stories of an auction going crazy, 2 people wanting it. Now, if you keep too firm on how high your price guide is, it restricts the amount of buyers who would be looking at that property and lowers the chance of having 2 buyers sought after your asset. Yes, it's ideal to have the price guide obviously as close to what you're willing to accept, but as sharp as it can be from day one to maximize week one. But during the campaign, there are levers you can pull to generate more inquiries. And real estate is very different to every other purchasing we do. Like, when you buy a car, you see for 40 grand, you offer 30. But with real estate, you see it as a guide of 30 and they want you to offer 40. So it is a little backwards. A lot of people, it takes a second to digest how that works. The most common statement I get back from owners is like, well, if it's a guide of 30, they'll offer 20. It's like, oh no, people are conditioned. It's more. But
within
guides
that's the law. I mean, that's not an opinion. 10% is a guiding range. Yes, in a market, sometimes you see people offering 5% on the guide, but I think your point is, it's sometimes more of a point of advertisement, and it's to compete with what else is on the market. So it's about getting your property out to the market, not about trying to put your finishing price on the advert straight away.
Exactly. But I think that sort of covers it for this morning. The catching the falling knife, as sometimes we can call it internally, and we would much love to be talking about how property pricing has gone up and everyone's making a boatload of money. But also the reality is, if you've owned property for a few years on the Northern Beaches, you are making a boatload of money. It's just really deciding if you want to make that move, understanding where the market is, and being able to make decisions based on that.
Yeah, it's a correction.
Billy?
Well, it's a correction to maybe 2023 prices. So
yes,
we had a very, very sharp increase in prices over a very short period, and I guess what has come up has come down, but relatively speaking, where you take the up and the down from, it's still marginally, I think, 5-10% more than what it was. So yeah, time in the market is your best friend. Real estate is a very resilient market to be in. It's not like shares where you could potentially lose everything and never see it again. Time is your best friend in real estate. It's very resilient, and for that reason, if you wait long enough, generally it's all right.
Beautiful. All good. Well, thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Yes.
Hope that helped.